ready.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you would like to join us, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Commissioner Goldthorpe is with us today, but he's on the phone. So if you hear a little disembodied voice, that will be him. Are you there, Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. All right, so the first item on our agenda is to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item is our consent agenda. And items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless the commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted. We've had a request to move item number 4, which we will do, and that will be number 1 on the regular agenda. Are there any other requests?
I'd just like to be recorded as voting no on item 5.
Are there any other requests? If not, is there a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda with those requests.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, this brings us to our regular agenda. These are all action items. So the first item is the Whisper Meadows subdivision preliminary plat. It's a request for approval and waiver of policy. We'll have a staff report from Mindy Wallace, and I assume the developer's representative is here? Okay, great. So, Mindy?
Madam President, Commissioners, for the record, Mindy Wallace, Development Services. Before you tonight, we have a decision briefing for Whisper Meadows subdivision. We'll have a brief project overview, a discussion of the applicant's request for a waiver of the continuation of streets policy, and then staff's recommendation. So before you is a preliminary plat application to allow for the development of 310 single-family building lots and 38 common lots on approximately 73 acres. The site is located on the west side of Linder Road between Lake Hazel and Columbia at the mid-mile, and it's highlighted in red. And the site has frontage on Linder Road, a principal arterial roadway.
Mindy, could you just raise your mic up a little bit so you're speaking right into it?
Is that
Thank
better? I'm not used to this new one.
Yeah, just flip it up a little. It's curved down. There you go.
Okay,
Thank you.
better?
Yes.
Okay. Do you need me to repeat anything?
No.
Okay. This development is estimated to generate approximately 2,893 vehicle trips per day, with 292 of those trips occurring during the PM peak hour. Consistent with ACHD policy and the master street map, the applicant will be making frontage improvements to Linder Road, including pavement widening and sidewalks. We'll be constructing a new east-west mid-mile collector along the north property line of the site, and we'll be dedicating right-of-way and providing a road trust deposit to allow for the future construction of a north-south collector along the west property line when the adjacent parcels develop. All of the internal streets will be improved with curb gutter and sidewalk. There are 2 stub streets to the site's south property line that were platted and constructed in 1999 with Chisholm Valley Subdivision, Chisholm Place, and McClintock Place. The applicants propose to extend Chisholm Place into the site and is requesting a waiver of policy not to extend McClintock Place into the site. In lieu of a vehicular connection, the applicants propose to construct a pedestrian pathway between the site and McClintock Place. The applicant's proposal The application notes that McClintock Place terminates in a cul-de-sac turnaround, that the roadway isn't needed to serve the site for traffic reasons, and that the residents of the Chisholm Valley subdivision are opposed to the extension of the stub streets as reasons for their requested waiver. The applicant's proposal to not extend McClintock into the site does not meet ACHD's continuation of streets policy, which requires stub streets to be extended. The City of Cuna is supportive of the applicant's request, noting that the city does not require the extension of stub streets. Under the applicant's proposal, Chisholm Place would be extended into the site. A pedestrian connection would be constructed between McClintock Place and the site, and the applicants propose to construct an additional stub street to the south, which would stub to the 20-acre parcel, and it would be extended when that site develops. Staff recommends approval of the applicant's proposal to not extend McClintock Place into the site, as the pedestrian connection would provide connectivity. The extension of the stub street is not needed to serve the site for traffic purposes. The street already terminates in an improved cul-de-sac meeting ACHD's rural street standards. Both of the stub streets feed to the same local street, providing a connection to Columbia Roadway, and the City of Cuna is supportive of the waiver of policy. This application meets all other ACHD policies and standards, and I'll recommend approval of the staff report as written, and I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Mindy?
I have a
Mr.
couple
Hanson?
questions. Yes, in the staff report, the indication is that currently this Lake Hazel State Highway 69 intersection operates at an unacceptable level of service, but it'll come down to E after the signal gets built. So what's the time frame for it to go back up to an unacceptable level of service, or do we have to wait until other development happens?
Commissioner Baker, President Baker, Commissioner Hanson, the signal was actually just installed. I drove through it this weekend. I don't know when it went in, but we would need to wait for some traffic data to be collected and analysis done to provide you with that information.
So this isn't like the area we were looking at where they were looking for subsequent developments are going to have to get the waiver of the level of service, because this is one of the earlier ones in this area.
It is, and this one's located off of Eagle or Linder Road. Most of those other ones were on the 10-mile corridor.
Mm-hmm. So when the city of Cuna reviewed this and gave the approval for the stub street, which seems to make sense, did they review the community motion development review? So they've approved this already, correct?
Did you had P&Z last night, Dave?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
Oh.
So they're waiting for our action before they go to P&Z.
Oh, okay. I took it as since the city had already taken a position on the stub street, they've already approved this. So we don't know if they've seen this
They've
development.
provided a draft copy of our staff report, the same as you have, so they would have received it when in our correspondence.
Right. Yeah. So, well, thank you very much.
So,
Mr.
That's right.
Mr. Woods?
to be clear, so the city of Cuna is not, the Planning and Zoning Commission nor the city council have taken action on this application.
Correct.
So when you say that they are okay with this, is that coming from staff? Is that coming from?
The staff and the planning director.
All right, thank you.
Okay, is the developer's representative here? And just give us your name and address for the record and make any comments that you wish.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is David Bailey. Well, I get too close to that. With Bailey Engineering, office address is 4242 North Brookside Lane in Boise, and representing Vanderkoy Farms in Timac. I don't know if I have any, I'm just answer questions. I'm ready to do that. So
Okay.
we're in agreement with the staff report
Okay.
and requested the waiver, of course.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bailey?
Only that since the development review has come forward and the city hasn't acted on it, would you have any problem with letting the city review this, take their action, since they have much broader authority than we do?
Commissioner Hanson, that's the way we always do it. The city won't review and won't get us to planning and zoning until the ACHD issues their staff report. So,
Yeah,
of course, and
Been around
those are
this
the
with a
conditions.
number of developments, yeah.
And we've of course talked to the neighbors and talked to the city and the ACHD staff about, how this goes forward, and that's how we got to this position, is because everybody's been in the discussion so far. So this recommendation will go to their P&Z also.
And P&Z is scheduled for next week.
I believe so.
Okay,
I
so
believe
they're
so.
not likely to cancel if we don't act on this.
Actually, we were deferred on this project specifically, probably get out of line, but on quite a few projects as ACHD was figuring out the level of service stuff, and we were having trouble getting our traffic study through the process. So we've been deferred at the CUNA P&Z, waiting on ACHD to issue a staff report. They won't hear us until ACHD gives us their conditions.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Bailey?
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Is there anyone here who wishes to testify on this item? Come on up, give us your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Loud. At least to me, I need to apologize. I'm very deaf. I have an 80% hearing loss, and I just turned up my hearing aids, and I think that's what I'm hearing. I should have gotten
No reason to apologize.
your systems.
At all. Thank you.
My name's Gary Schaefer, and I am a candidate for ACHD, and I would like to ask that this be removed totally for several reasons. One is CUNA hasn't reviewed it, and I understand the fact that CUNA, the process that CUNA.
Mr. Schaefer, you need to put your address for the record.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's 10840 West Highlander Road, Boise, 83709. Anyway, I would like it be removed, put on the regular agenda, or just be removed until it has time to be maybe better thought out, is good terminology. This was brought up to my attention today, concerns of what I hopefully will be constituent at some time. Commissioner Case, I guess, lives in this area, and they were concerned with the at least appearance of impropriety that Commissioner Case was an ACHD commissioner, is currently an Ada County commissioner, is running for ACHD commission. And they and I am concerned that there might be showing some favoritism. I personally am against waivers. I think waivers should be the very last part of the situation, not the top. And I don't mean to turn this into a political campaign. But I do think that this should be taken off the agenda until there can be more testimony towards it, more thought, and possibly some investigation into what's being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to testify on this item? Okay, if not, Commission, you have it before you.
I have one quick question of staff, just that reminded me. The director's memo we got yesterday indicated that the neighbors to the south had approved this. They had a chance to approve, or at least the staff report and the extension of the, or the waiver of the extension of the Stubb Street. So which neighbors to the south, and was that a part of the, I didn't see that in the documents.
President Baker and Commissioner Hanson, I'm not familiar, or maybe Dave Bailey.
Commissioner Baker, Commissioner Hanson, my statement was that the neighbors at the south supported. I didn't say anything about approve, as I said, with the city
Yes.
planners and such. And that was based on conversations with staff. And have we talked to the specific neighbors? No, but that's the information we have.
Okay, so
Yeah, thanks.
staff talked to neighbors to the south, and they support the waiver of the Stubb Street. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So I think this is a classic example of something that should not be coming before the ACHD until CUNA has had an opportunity to review it. The development report clearly shows that this exceeds Communities in Motion's forecast. It's 310 housing units and 2.5 miles of new roads. We don't measure the pedestrian issues, but Compass did evaluate it not on a P or PG. I'm always amused at their scoring. They put it down as an R, and of course, the transit's simply not available. This exceeds the growth forecast for the area. I think CUNA really has to grapple with this. before ACHD weighs in on the narrow parameters of whether or not to extend the stub streets. Because like with a number of other developments we've heard, first, they've gone away or substantially changed after spending time. I think it's just as we are now relying on a reference from the development director, the city's approval of the stub street, perhaps they could simply rely on our director's reference that we don't have a problem with stub streets, use that for the deliberation of their decision before it comes back to us. We certainly will be bearing, the taxpayers will be bearing the cost of this development.
Mr. Woods?
I just, one quick question for staff, if you would, Mindy. Has Commissioner Case made contact with you or any of the staff regarding this matter?
President Baker and Commissioner Woods, no, not that I'm aware of. We've had no contact with him.
Thank you. I just wanted to address that since we had that as a public comment. So I guess, if I could just follow up. So, I get, and we've had for a long time, this issue of what comes first, the chicken or the egg, is it, do we hear it first? Does the city of Keene hear it first? So in this particular matter, we're a recommending body, and I don't have any issue with, Commissioner Hanson, you pointing out that when the city of Keene makes this final decision, one way or the other, the analysis from Compass, I think that's fine. I think from my perspective, I'm fine with the staff report except for this waiver of policy on the extension of the street. I guess if Keene wants to make that decision, then they can do that subsequently, but we have plenty of instances where I know neighbors are opposed to connection and connectivity, and I just, looking at this development, I think that connectivity is going to be needed down the line. So I support the staff report, but without the waiver of policy for the stub street.
Well, I have a question. Just to follow up to that with staff, why don't you walk us through why staff is supportive of not extending that stub street?
So, President Baker, Commissioner Arnold, we'll have a stub street in this location.
It's really
here.
hard to hear you.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get
There'll be
closer
a
to the
stub
mic.
street here that would be extended, that would provide connectivity. If the street were extended, it would provide vehicular travel through, and they would all end up at the same point on Columbia. There's an additional stub street in this location. The end of McClintock Place is terminated in an existing improved turnaround that meets all of our rural standards. The traffic study didn't identify it as being needed for traffic purposes, because this parcel will have collector roadways all the way around it, which will be used to circulate traffic and push it out to the arterial system. And there's another stub street right here within the Chisholm Valley subdivision that could be extended in the future and would eventually tie into that collector to provide additional access and connectivity for these residents as well.
Just to follow up, so you're not concerned about the fact that without the extension, the residents on McClintock will only have one way in and out of their neighborhood?
They would not have one way in and out. They would be able to come down McClintock and get on Chisholm Way and go through the new development on the extension of Chisholm Place. And then at some point, they would be able to get out over to the west when that new collector is constructed and that roadway is extended.
But they only have one way to get to Chisholm Place.
Yes, correct.
Not concerned about that.
No.
Well, I usually don't make the motions, but I'm going to go ahead and do it
Well-
in this case, unless someone else wants to.
I'm prepared to make
Okay.
the motion
Ms. Arnold?
to approve the Whisper Meadows subdivision in accordance with the staff's recommendation in the staff report.
I'm going to second the motion. Is there any discussion?
I agree with Commissioner Woods. I think that if you're going to move forward with it, more connectivity is much better than less. And of course, we come from a part of the county where there's significantly more connectivity. And it seems to me we shouldn't easily dismiss a stub street that's been there for 20 years.
Mr. Woods?
No, I'm sorry, just Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Oh, Commissioner Goldthorpe, did you want to say something?
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Woods as well.
Okay, well, I usually, I'm all about connecting the substreets, and in this case, it's going to be connected by pedestrian access. There's also going to be, I mean, we're looking at connectivity in a green field here. There's going to be connectivity to the west, there's going to be connectivity to the north, there's going to be connectivity to the south in 2 places, and I don't know. There might even be connectivity to the east, which I can't really tell from here. But this, as it's built out, will have the connectivity we need. We'll also have some pedestrian accesses that will allow for movement of mobility in a different format than just cars. So I'm going to support the motion. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion fails. Gentlemen, what do you want to do?
Madam
You need a
President,
substitute motion.
Madam President, I move that we approve the staff report with the modification that the request for waiver for extension of the stub street on McClintock be removed, and that with that change, then the staff report be forwarded to the city of Kuna.
So it's a denial of the waiver. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Does anybody want to second that?
Second that motion then.
Okay. Mr. Woods, I had a question for you. Does that mean that if CUNA wants to not have the stub street continued, that you would be fine with that? Or would you demand that the stub street be connected?
I'm not the parliamentarian here. Usually we're the recommending body, right? So that's.
No,
what
this
we're
is a preliminary plat. We have
we're
signing
approving it.
authority.
Yeah. I guess the city of Kuna would have to come back and I don't know. The argument you said is potentially one way in, one way out. There's a lot of different ways you can slice it, so that's my motion. We can always take
So
other
if
actions,
CUNA
right?
comes back and wants to remove the stub street, they could make that request?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just want to put that on the record. Okay, any other further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. All right. That concludes that item. Next up is condemnation of right-of-way necessary for Meridian Road Project, Meridian Professional Office LLC, parcel 10. I think it's 55 West Willowbrook Drive, Meridian, Idaho. This is an authorization and order of condemnation. This is a public hearing. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and we will hear from our staff, Dave Serdar.
President. President Baker, Commissioners, for the record, David Serdar, ACHD Right-of-Way Supervisor. This is a public hearing and decision briefing for the condemnation of Parcel 10 on the Meridian Road Cherry Lane to Use Stick project. This project is on ACHD's Integrated 5-Year Work Plan for fiscal years 18 to 22, and is set to begin construction in fiscal year 2020. This is an aerial view of the parcel. It is situated at the southwest corner of Willowbrook and Meridian Road. This is a close-up of the parcel. The yellow represents the 0.046 acres of acquisition area. The green represents the .071 acres of permanent easement. Approximate size of the lot after the acquisition will be approximately 1.414 acres. The highest and best use for the property is office complex. Total compensation offered for the acquisition, permanent easement, and improvements is $29,926.50. The offer was made on October 12, 2017. ACHD staff has negotiated with property owner prior to and after the final offer was made. We've been in negotiations for approximately a year. ACHD has negotiated with Mr. Fowler since October. Once again, these negotiations have taken place by phone, email, and mail, and the final offer was sent by phone and email, excuse me. It is staff recommendation that the commission approve the condemnation with the following actions. Declare the acquisition area is necessary for the project as a highway and public use. Authorize staff to proceed with condemnation action. Execute an order of condemnation for the acquisition area. I will remain standing for any questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question, but I might need Scott Spears to help out on this. It came to my attention when I was reading this and the reference on page 2 that the public necessity for this condemnation was generated or approved by the ACHG Commission with their adoption of last year's integrated 5-year work plan. So the public necessity was approved. Is that this? Have we already made a finding of public necessity when we for future condemnations when we approve the 5-year work plan?
Madam President, Mr. Commissioner, no. That
okay, good.
action made it necessary. It didn't declare it necessary.
Okay. I was just wanting to make sure that, well, that's my next question. So the public necessity made it necessary. Then the standard is in page 1 on the order of condemnation, that we have to make a finding that this is the most compatible with the greatest public good and the least private injury. Is that our standard?
Yes.
So the standard doesn't refer to just to car traffic or road traffic. It refers to the greatest public good and the least private injury. Is that?
Madam President, Mr. Commissioner, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Both.
But that's the finding we have to make.
Yes.
In this hearing. Okay, thank you.
So I had a question for Mr. Serdar. It looks like in the permanent easement area, there will be buildings there. Or there are buildings there.
One sec.
And maybe they're just sheds or something, but
Madam President, Commissioners, what is actually there is it's a landscaping, it's rocks, but it is not a functioning, as near as we can have been able to tell, it is not a functioning seepage bed or anything for the property. It is a kind of a divot in the ground, and it's landscape. It's essentially landscaping rocks.
well, what's the area at the top? That's half in and half out of the permanent easement.
President Baker, that Commissioners, that is actually the sign for the property.
Okay.
We will actually not be moving that sign.
Okay, so they'll be allowed to keep these things in the permanent easement.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, this is a public hearing. Does anyone wish to testify on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and Commission, you have it before you.
I'll just follow up on my concern, and that is, I don't know, there's a great deal of need to do this right away, but the evidence that puts before us that this is a public necessity under the 5-year integrated work plan, so we approve that. But the additional evidence seems to be we ought to have some evidence upon which to make that higher standard of most compatible with the greatest public good and the least private injury. which I don't think we have that evidence because we kind of operate on the assumption of, well, we've already made the determination we want so many lanes and the traffic's going to move this way on this road. But it seems to me under the higher standard that's required to take private property, we should have more evidence. And until we do, I'm not comfortable voting for a condemnation until we look at how we actually live up to this. Ada County Highway District only considers certain sets of information. It doesn't measure all aspects of the greatest public good. And so that's where I just don't feel comfortable, based upon that standard, supporting this.
Is there a motion? Mr. Woods?
Just, I'm trying to understand what you're saying there, Commissioner Hanson. I mean, we have a capital improvement plan. This is consistent with the capital improvement plan. It's a project that's in the integrated 5-year work plan. I'm trying to understand what you're saying you need in terms of additional evidence. So I'm just asking for clarification.
Yeah, so, and I should have noticed this much sooner because the standard is different. By approving the 5-year integrated work plan, I don't think we were intending to make that, or the capital improvements plan, make the assumption that that's adequate set of evidence for a taking under the most compatible with the greatest public good and the least private injury, which means I think we have to have a procedure that puts the additional evidence. A general purpose government can do that because they have access to so many more measurements for the public general welfare. We don't, so that's where I think we have to look at the procedures we're using to take private property just simply based on the evidence that's incorporated into our determination that we need these roads widened under our 5-year plan or the capital improvements plan.
So, Mr. Hanson, is your complaint that we're widening the road to 5 lanes and you would rather not have it widened? Because if we are going to widen it to 5 lanes, it's clear from the graphic that the property is necessary.
I'm asking for evidence that is more than what was presented to us when our 5-year integrated work plan was approved in September of 2017.
But
So that we can meet this legal standard
the
most compatible.
The plan shows a 5-lane road, and that has been approved. And in order to have a 5-lane road, the graphic shows you need the property. So is your complaint that we approved a plan that has a 5-lane road because you'd rather have it be a 3-lane road?
I have no complaint whatsoever. I'm just referring to the legal standard to which I feel obligated to uphold
Madam President,
for
may
a
I
taking of
assist?
private property.
Mr. Spears?
I would point the commission to the staff report, the first paragraph under findings and fact, where it clearly indicates a Meridian Road project is being completed in order to widen the road to 5 lanes with curb gutter, sidewalk, bike lanes in accordance with the Meridian Road concept design and the 2016 CIP. Meridian Road project is currently included in the integrated 5-year work plan and the scheduled construction in 2020, FY20. I believe that finding is sufficient, Madam President.
Thank you.
Okay, so, but the reference in that, what you referred to is the CIP and the work plan, correct?
Yes, Madam President, Commissioner, as well as the integrated 5-year work plan. Yes.
Right, the CIP as well. Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Ms. Arnold?
I move that we declare the acquisition area necessary for public project for this project that's referenced, and that we authorize staff to proceed with condemnation, and that we authorize the president to execute an order of condemnation.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Goldthorpe, any discussion?
No, none. Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to point out that an order of condemnation does not stop the negotiation process, so there's still the ability to get this settled prior to having to go to court. So, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Okay. Next up is the integrated 5-year work plan adoption. This is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing, and we will have a staff report from Ryan Head, our planning and programming supervisor.
Thank you, President Baker, Commission. For the record, Ryan Head, Planning Supervisor here at ACHD. We are here tonight to present the FY 2019-2023 Integrated 5-Year Work Plan for adoption. It has been developed in full coordination with the public and ACHD's partners throughout the last year. We presented to the Commission in 3 different work sessions throughout this last year and are here today to recommend that you adopt the plan by resolution 2255.
And Ryan, just for the record, who are our partners?
Our partners would be the cities, the school districts, the county, as well as all other bodies, public entities with whom we coordinate and work throughout the development of this plan.
Thank you.
Just to again set the plan in context, the integrated 5-year work plan represents the ACHD budget that was adopted by the Commission last month. That is the first 2 years of the plan, and then the out years of the plan in connection with that budget are the implementation arm of all ACHD's planning efforts. We believe that we make commitments when we plan, and the integrated 5-year work plan is the way and the budget are the way by which we implement those plans. It indicates and provides and articulates for the public and for our partners what we are planning to accomplish, and allows the coordination of our work with the private utilities, with our partner entities in order to ensure that we are efficiently and effectively using the taxpayer dollars that we've received. The plan includes a summary of the Commission direction that we received through the adoption of a vision, mission priorities in our strategic plan. It includes a summary report of progress in implementing key plans. Those are the implementation metrics that are highlighted in the introductory section, as well as the projects for which the Commission supports staff seeking federal funding. It also includes, and the bulk majority of it is the program of projects. The plan was released for a 1-month public comment period in July through August. It was transmitted to our partners, to the public. It was advertised via social media and various means. We received a number of comments, around 75 comments. Those were reviewed with the Commission earlier this month. And the direction we received from the Commission has been implemented and integrated into this adoption draft. We've also updated the introductory section with that funding plan, as well as based on public input, we've made some clarifications and added an acronyms page just to clarify the details of the plan. We've also updated the interactive project map. This is a tool that was developed completely internally with ACHD staff that allows individuals to be able to see within their area or see the projects that are going on and the details of those. As mentioned, we've sought to reach out to our partners and to visit with the public on the plans that are moving forward. We've sought requests from the cities, the school districts, and the county. We've provided the plan for review to the public and to all entities. We've given opportunities for comments via that comment map, via email, via various different opportunities that we have. And ultimately, this is not the end. While we set a plan that sets the course of action, we continue to reach out and engage the public through the process of scoping these projects, as well as through the design process. We are at this time presenting the plan to you for your and recommending your approval of the plan by resolution 2255, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, Commissioner Goldthorpe, did you have a question?
No, none, thank you.
Okay, so we have a few people signed up to testify on this item. I'll call your name and you can come up and give your name and address for the record. Ann Houserath. Hello, Ann.
President Baker, commissioners, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. My comments are on behalf of the North End Neighborhood Association. I'm Ann Houserath. I live at 1820 North 7th Street, Boise 83702. We are very grateful for the project in this plan in the North End. There's some things we've been asking for a long time, both on 28th and on 8th and 9th Street, and I'm very glad to see them. I have submitted on behalf of Nina some specific questions, so I only have comments. I only have one specific request, but in general, I think we're moving in the right direction, but I really encourage you to put more money into the community projects. We continue to ask you to lower the speed limit on all North End streets to 20 miles an hour. In order to make that viable, we have to have more traffic calming. We definitely do encourage you to put more funding into the infrastructure and the signage for the newly adopted low-stress bike network. We encourage you to fund transit, to figure out ways to fund transit. We need this. All of the above are ways of effective, reasonably low-cost ways of mitigating congestion. Our one specific request which we would like added is a bulb out on Harrison at Residue. This is C4 in the high priorities of the North Boise Bike Ped Plan. It is a school crossing. There's some flashing lights there, but we need more help there. I mean, kids have been hit going to North Junior High, not any this year as far as I know. So basically, we appreciate what's in there and we're going to continue to ask for more. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is, okay, Brandon Atchley. And boy, you write small.
Short and sweet, to the point.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Brendan Atchley. Do I need to give my address?
Yes.
Okay, 503 East 50th Street over in Garden City, 83714. I just wanted to comment on the Linda Road widening to 5 lanes. That I would claim that it's imperative, as CUNA right now mainly utilizes Meridian Road and Linda Road as accesses north and south, as well as their connectivity to the remainder of Treasure Valley, as while we're extending 16 to allow for more connectivity to the north to the remainder of Maine, Ada County, primarily Boise, but as well as Garden City, Meridian, so on and so forth. It's very critical for traffic flow to continue. As anyone that's ever driven south of the interstate during PM peak hour, it is congested, to say the least. So making sure that while CUNA is blowing up in developments and just tons of growth, it's supposed to double by 2025, I believe was the last figure I remember reading from 2010, that it's able to not bottleneck itself, and then when all this development come back later, and then having to be re-widened based off of high capacity intersections or just widenings based off of lane widenings. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all that's signed up to testify. Is there anyone else who wishes to address this item? No? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. And Commission, you have it before you.
Well, Madam President, I want to thank those that came to testify tonight. I appreciate that. Spending time reading an integrated 5-year work plan has got to take dedication and commitment. And so for those of you, wish I had a gold star, but to get through something like that is very commendable. And I think the process is one in which really, setting the budget sets the stage for the integrated 5-year work plan. But the integrated 5-year work plan is really where we express, what our priorities are and what we're going to execute on behalf of the community's interests. So I want to thank the staff for the work that they've put in. It's a very detailed document. I think one of the elements that's often overlooked in the integrated 5-year work plan is it lays out, it over-programs projects, right? So in the event we get grant money, in the event that additional monies are available, it lays out what's possible after that. So I think that it's important, as we as commissioners were focused this year on putting together both the budget and the 5-year work plan, we were confronted with this graph of a decline in available revenue for capital projects, and that was pretty significant. And so our ability to fund capital projects is in many ways tied to our ability to maintain and control costs of maintenance. And I know, Commissioner Hanson, you've talked about that, time and again. So it's a very real issue for us as we've had to reduce funding for various congestion mitigation, large projects, bridge maintenance, capital maintenance, those kinds of things. I've continued to be an advocate for the community programs because I think they're just so essential, whether you have transit or whether you're trying to reduce congestion. I mean, the ability for us to use sidewalks to get to school, sidewalks to get to other destinations, sidewalks to get to the bus, sidewalks in lieu of a single occupancy automobile, it's a critical part of what we do, and I'll continue to advocate for that. I think my fellow commissioners have been supportive of that in the past, and I've appreciated that tremendously. So I think that the integrated 5-year work plan does a good job. I would like to advocate for the bulb out at Harrison and Residue. I'm very familiar with that intersection. I'm familiar with the safety issue there. I do think it's something we can address. I'm not sure that level of project even needs to be in the integrated 5-year work plan. That might be something that we can do outside of that, but I do want to see us address that. But I'm supportive of the work that's been done here, and it really lays the foundation for us having to do even more work and find even more sources of revenue to be able to make it become reality. Thank you, President Baker.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion
That's to approve it?
to approve it, and
Okay.
to include the consideration of Harrison, the bulb out at Harrison and Residue.
If it needs to be in the 5-year work plan.
Correct.
Is there a second?
I'll second it for purposes of discussion. Do we have any numbers on what the bulb out's gonna cost? I mean, normally if it's something that's in one small area, like on a corner of corner of two streets, we don't normally put that in the 5-year work plan, but
Yeah, no, I mean, it's,
Madam President, Commissioner Arnold, it would be something we'd need to take a look at to come up with some numbers.
I don't think it could be that much.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's probably not very much, but.
Any other discussion?
Yep, I won't be voting for the motion. My comments are not unlike comments I've had in past years and have raised them in work sessions. This obviously is built, it's not with the brilliance of staff in putting this together within the limited measurements and parameters imposed by the commission. They do a good job. Clearly, this is built upon this notion of level of service for cars at the peak hour, and it drives so much of what we do. And in fact, we understand, it certainly was clarified, it also creates a standard of public necessity that then moves us into the realm of taking private property when we want to make those expansions. Even though we also say widening doesn't appreciably reduce congestion. We don't use other measurements. So when we say, well, this will bring level of service in an acceptable level for cars, well, by bringing it down to an acceptable level for cars, what have we done for pedestrians, cyclists, and transit? We don't know because we don't measure that. We do have data on deaths. There is an effort around the country to get to Vision Zero, and if that was a goal here, it would significantly impact the way we evaluate these, because when you build out to 5 lanes on a road, that, yeah, it might be slow during the peak hour, it also becomes very dangerous for children to cross for all the other 120 some hours. In particular, I was disappointed that when we were dealing with South Eagle Road south of Victory, there was no discussion of 3 lanes. This is a road that extends through residential areas and then ends at Hubbard. The only options was how we were going to configure out the drainage and the sidewalks with 5 lanes. Maple Grove's the same way. Cloverdale, 5 lanes. Now, if Cloverdale is going to be an expressway by all these houses, let's tell the people that and not make South Eagle and South Maple Grove. We're heading south into the desert. Lake Hazel is going to be an expressway. Orchard, we know, is going to be an expressway, and 5-lane, that's a good one because it's not going by a bunch of neighborhoods. And it can now be designed, neighborhoods are not going to want to build with their backs up against a 5-lane Orchard extension. My concerns with State Street is significant, and it's been the case for the last 4 years. There's reference to HOV and transit in the 5-year integrated work plan, but we already know there's no statutory authority for HOVs, and there is no design decision that has been made on the transit lanes. This is the same issue with the intersections. We know there's going to be a cost. We've had discussions now on what those transit lanes might look like. We should have had those, we should have waited to start spending money on State Street until we were much closer to what those would look like. The intersection program, though, we've moved forward on that. We spent a lot of money. But we don't know what the high-capacity transit stations look like. The discussion tends to be, well, they're bus stops. No. The transit corridor talks about transit-oriented development that will only come if people feel safe getting on and off high-capacity transit. If they don't feel safe there, the developers aren't going to invest there. And so they're not going to turn it into a transit-oriented development site. I'm impressed with the bridge program. I'm still a little baffled why Eckert Road Bridge isn't on there until presumably sometime after 2025, but I do know that it's not impact fee eligible because it's not going to be wider. It's interesting, the traffic calming, all of the community programs to me are traffic calming. There is, however, under traffic safety and operations, 13th Street and Kootenai. That's good. But several people asked me, why isn't Highland View on there? We did a test with candles. We've taken the candles away. We now ought to be designing and putting into our 5-year work plan what traffic calming looks on that road. The same issue with Shaw Mountain and Shenandoah. We know speeding is happening because of the design. They're design flaws that have to be alleviated because they're not only wide, they're going downhill. The key portion of this is really important, is regard to capital maintenance. And I notice it on Main Street and Idaho Street. We're going to be spending $1.9 million, but we still haven't resolved the bike facilities on Main and Idaho. That gets put off and put off and put off. I expect we'll be spending probably $1.9 million to put the bike facilities on that the people want when it's eventually resolved. But that's a disappointment to me. The community programs, which is right at the end, is really about congestion management. We don't measure that way. When we have connected bike and pedestrian facilities, when we have facilities that people can get to their bus stops, that reduces the demand for cars, and actually is part of transportation demand management, which we talk about in commuter ride, but we don't talk about in the rest of us. There are, and we should be talking about TDM throughout this entire document. I was disappointed to see that we still call it economic development under community programs, even though we don't measure economic development. We told people when they came to the open houses for 5th and 6th conversion, Boise does that. We don't measure that, yet they're still listed. 4 of the 6 projects are listed as unfunded, including the 5th and 6th two-way conversion. This is a priority for the economic viability of that area, and yet it is listed as unfunded. And so that's a big disappointment. But I understand why. All the tools that we ought to be using to measure this, I should be the ones that determine. And then when we have those tools, I think we can safely then say, this is in the greatest public need. Even when we're taking private property or not, this is the greatest public. We've looked at all of the public needs, and maybe what we have to do because of our narrow parameters have to wait until the cities determine with their broader parameters under the Land Use Planning Act and other tools they have to say, yes, this is in the general public welfare. These are the public goods. Now, we would partner with you in taking action on this. But by operating separately, I think we're making a big mistake. So the tools that go into this plan, and it's because this plan drives so much. We have an operations plan we talked about in the work session. It's built on top of this. And so it's our job. I think it's my job as a representative of the people I serve to unpack what's causing me to say, these are the deficiencies, these are the public necessities. And that's why, again, I will not be voting for the integrated 5-year work plan.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Goldthorpe?
Thank you. First of all, the young man who spoke from CUNA, I did not hear everything he had to say, and I would really like to. So possibly if someone there could give him my phone number and he could give me a call, I'd appreciate that. I would thank the staff for all the work they've done on this 5-year work plan. It's just a monumental task and one I'm glad I don't have to do myself. I do know from the last 4 years that we as commissioners have a lot of opportunity to interact with our constituents, and we can make some things happen within the 5-year plan that you don't see right in front of you today, at least insofar as priorities go. And that is something that hopefully will continue. I know it will on my part. Anyway, I will concur with Commissioner Woods and vote for the motion because I think that's a small enough tweak to this 5-year plan that it won't impact anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Arnold?
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. I would like to thank our staff and our community partners that have put a lot of effort and thought and input into this plan. I think they've done an excellent job. I would also point out that level of service doesn't drive everything. Level of service was one factor of many that went into the development of this plan. We also look at safe routes to school. We look at connectivity for bike lanes and bike networks. We look at connectivity for sidewalks. We do work with our partners agencies to get their input into this plan, and we integrate that into our plans. We also look at the city's comprehensive plans, and that is a big factor in how we plan our roadways and bikeways and pedestrian facilities in this valley, because the land use drives the transportation needs. If they're not going to build those out, then we wouldn't need these roads and sidewalks and bike lanes. So I think there are many factors that go into this. The school districts provide us with input into the community programs. They provide us with their preferred routes for improving pedestrian and bicycle safety for their students going to school. I also have to disagree that we should sit on our hands and do nothing until we have statutory authority for HOV lanes. We can't wait for the legislature to act on things. We have to continue to plan with the tools that we have. And if at some point those kinds of things are approved, we're at least talking about them and trying to integrate them into the plans and not just waiting until the legislature acts. As far as State Street goes, I know that's a problem for Commissioner Hanson. We spent years planning State Street. We spent years getting input from Valley Regional Transit, the bus lines. We spent lots of time and effort with the cities to talk about where they wanted transit-oriented development. And we have a plan that we are implementing based on their input and their approval of those plans. So I'm going to support the motion to approve the plan.
So I'm going to also support the motion. Just as the budget that we passed at the end of August sets out the parameters of how we can spend money and where we spend the money, this plan lays out the ability or where we're actually going to spend the money on the ground. And both of those go to our fiduciary duty as commissioners in order to make this place work. If we don't have a budget, we can't spend the money. If we don't have the plan, where will you spend it? The plan also has the ability or the purpose of showing where things are going to be built throughout the next 5 years and allows people to make decisions based on that. It's kind of almost a reaction to what has been done, but it also is a template for what will be done. And so it's important that we adopt a plan. If we don't, it's just, I mean, I don't even know how you'd spend the money if you don't have a comprehensive plan to do that. I'd also point out that while we may not need, we'll never be able to build our way out of congestion. I mean, let's be honest about that. But right now, in a number of areas of town that are high-growth areas, we have farm-to-market roads, 2 lanes, one going one way, one going the other, no sidewalks, no bike lanes, pretty much not even any shoulders. They're right next to a borrow pit. It's very dangerous. And those things need to be built out because there are going to be a lot of people moving into those areas, whether we want them to or not. I mean, it's just it's a function of what's happening. We have explosive growth and we need to meet it in the best ways possible. This plan helps us get there. Next year, the next 5-year work plan will help us get a little bit further on down the line. Is everything perfect? No. Do we have enough money? No. If we had $1 billion, maybe we could do everything everybody wants. But for right now, we have strictures and guidelines, and that's what we're doing. We're working within that. But approving this plan is our fiduciary duty. It's our oath of office to keep this place running, so I will be supporting the motion. So with that, let's call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. All right, that concludes our regular agenda. We have public communications now. I believe we have somebody signed up for that. Ronald Rosenketter. And he's not the only one. If anyone else wishes to say anything, that's
Ronald
fine, too.
Rosenketter, 4304 West Hillcrest Drive.
Okay.
And this is on the parking on Hillcrest Drive during
And you
the
understand we
tournament.
can't make any decisions on this.
Did all of the commissioners get a copy of my petition?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I would like to read a statement.
Okay, but you understand we can't make any decision right now.
Right.
Okay, great.
I'd just like to,
Go ahead.
for you to hear me.
That's fine.
I said during the tournament, I made a complaint about the parking on Hillcrest Drive to ACHD. I received a call back from Mr. Watson on 14 September, and he said he was leaving town that day but would review my complaint on Monday. After the tournament, I wrote a petition on what I thought should happen and had it signed by all the residents on Hillcrest Drive, the ones that I could get, 14 so far. They were all in agreement with me that something needs to be changed on the parking situation on Hillcrest Drive during the Boise Open. I believe at this time we should establish a commission or a committee to discuss the issues and concerns and come up with a solution to the parking problem. I called my District 17 representative, Mr. Gannon, and read my petition to him. He stated that I should request from ACHD a permit and application on the parking on Hillcrest Drive, which I received by email today, but I didn't get all of it. I need a hard copy. He was familiar with the situation because he used to live on Pond Street. He said that I should get a permit at the application from ACHD, and he would discuss the matter with all the residents when he received the copy of the permit. Our biggest complaint, the residents, is angle parking, which is a serious safety issue. One compromise that I would make is there could be parking on one side of the street where there is no sidewalks. I want residents to be able to go both ways upon leaving their residence during the tournament. Parking on both sides of the street should not be allowed, especially angle parking in the permit process. There is a large open dirt lot at the Albertsons Shopping Center on Overland and Orchard that can be used for parking with the permission of the shopping center owner. Vehicles could be parked there and bused to the tournament. In addition, the satellite parking facility at the Boise Airport could be used. Thanks for listening to my concerns to the parking problem on Hillcrest Drive, and hopefully we will come up with a solution to that problem. I did talk to the president of the board of directors at Hillcrest Country Club today, Mr. Slocum, and he would like for me to come back with anything that you come up with so he can make a decision, because ACHD and the board of directors of Hillcrest Country Club will make probably the final decision on the parking issue. Thank you.
Well, you certainly have plenty of time.
Thank you.
So hopefully within the next year, a committee can be formed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the commission on any topic? Come on up.
Sorry, I was unprepared. Debbie Lombard Bloom, 4603 North Collister Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83703. And I've been working with the BBBC on their roadways to bikeways with you guys. I'm just curious when the map is going to actually hit so we can download it and see what's coming up, what was approved. Because we're trying to take it to the neighborhoods so that they know.
Madam President, Commission, the integrated 5-year work plan map is already on our website now. And there is an ability that you can click and see just the community programs projects.
So, but specifically the roadways to bikeways one, that was, you had it 9 years ago, and now we just redid it this year with Brook Green. That map is not updated.
I think it was March.
We will review
approved
that.
it.
Okay, perfect. That's all I need.
We'll get it out as soon as we can.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, meeting adjourned.